You're listening to the Adventurous Weirdos podcast by Watcher DM. Learn more at watcherdm.com or come join our Patreon at patreon.com/watcherdm. Stay weird.
Hi, Gabriel.
Hi, Austin. I'm Gabriel Hernandez.
I'm Austin Holm.
We're Watcher DM.
We are.
And Questgiver Games Limited. You are watching or listening to the Adventurous Weirdos podcast, episode, I think, 10?
Really?
Are we on 10 or 9 or 8, 9, 10, 11? I don't know.
We're up there.
We actually probably need to start keeping track
Yeah.
of how many episodes we've
Or
recorded.
just carve it into the wall like we're prisoners.
Carve
working
it into
days.
my skin.
Right. Oh, wow.
In Roman numerals.
That's space efficient.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So, hey, man, how have you been?
I've been well. I've been very well, actually. I think I'm about to play RPGs 3 days in a row.
Holy crap.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's a pretty good week.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Now that you mention it, I think I am almost 3 days. Well, no, because I played Saturday.
Oh, did you?
I played Blue Home.
Huh?
Yeah, so Blue Home on Saturday. I started a campaign on... Oh, wait, no. Sunday we played Troika on Sunday. And I ran D&D last night.
Yeah.
So I'm already at 3 days played.
You're about to turn over into the fourth dimension.
Today is the fourth day. I get to play Troika tonight. We're playtesting your newest undercover secret operation game. Can't talk about it.
Is that... Yeah, sure.
It's garbage.
that is true. Yeah.
But not in the way I'm playing.
It's great.
It's great.
It's garbage.
It's garbage. Great garbage.
Thank you.
So in our last episode, we talked, I think, at length about what we thought made a good 5e adventure.
Yeah.
And we got a subscriber from that. That was pretty exciting for me. Somebody listened almost all the way through. I think they skipped a kind of mid chunk, and then they subscribed.
We did it for you.
My heart did a pitter patter. I did a bounce in my chest. It was so sweet. So if you are that subscriber, I love you. Thank you.
Yeah, you're the best.
Yeah. You're why we do this stuff.
Yeah. I don't know who you are, but I'm sure you're innocent of whatever people say about you, and you're a great person. So.
Yeah, those accusations cannot be confirmed.
Yeah. I believe in you.
Speaking of confirmed accusations or unconfirmed accusations,
here we go.
I think we've decided a pretty spicy topic for today. I don't know how spicy it is, but
we're doing hot takes, fellas.
Yeah. So recently in the, I think it was OSR subreddit, r/OSR. There was a post recently that was reminding people, or maybe telling people for the first time, that Lamentations of the Flame Princess includes sexual violence in its rules, in its core rule set. Now, for those unfamiliar, Lamentations of the Flame Princess is a OSR variant. It's pretty much like basic D&D. Yeah. It's a BX
with some quality of life improvements that personally I think very highly of.
I think this is kind of the crux of the problem with it.
Yeah.
At some level, is that it is an adult game. It is marketed as a XXX game. It is very clear that it is a XXX game. It doesn't shy away from this at all. And to be honest, what we're talking about today is only one of the many offensive,
questionable aspects.
Yeah, extremely offensive things in the rules of the game.
And honestly, just in the core rules, because once you get into the supplements like vaginas are magic and eldritch cock, wow.
Yeah, like this is a game system that has kind of made its name and staked its claim to being
grindhouse,
the adult grindhouse kind of nasty D&D. This is the D&D that you were masturbating to when you were like 11 or 12 or 13 or whenever you started doing that sort of thing. So that said, obviously not for children.
No.
And designed to not be for children.
Yeah. But still very punchy. I
think that at the heart of it, and this is maybe a market opportunity, I just want to say that out loud. If somebody came along and took the good ideas
from
Lamentations of the Flame Princess and didn't include the junk, the additional, stuff for stuff's sake, the things that are literally just trying to be over that edge, they would probably end up with a really usable version of BX. Arguably more usable, and I can actually say this with experience now because I've tried these games, more usable than Blue Home or OSE.
Yeah.
I think both of those games are fine. Their systems are good, but they are lacking. They are missing core systems that we've used in Lamentations to great effect.
Yeah, so one of the things about Lamentations, as you probably know, the implied setting is it's horror fantasy that's meant to take place in like the early 17th century, like early 1600s. I have never used it for that. I'm never going to run a horror fantasy campaign. If I was going to run a horror game, I'd run it in the modern day or 20th century. I'm not going to run, the 30 Years War, the D&D version. I don't want to be in 17th century Europe. That sounds fucking terrible.
That's
yeah.
At least it's post-plague, I think.
Nobody wanted to be in 17th century Europe. That's why we speak English in the Americas. That's the entire... Everybody wanted to get the fuck out, and I don't want to go back. I don't know. Am I crazy?
I think you could be both.
Yeah. But,
yeah.
Yeah, and so, like, when I run Lamentations, I tend to skip some of that stuff. That's just... how I run it.
I'm gonna say with some amount of shame that I had no idea that this was in the book.
Yeah,
and that is because where this is in the book is in the failure results.
Yeah,
on a spell that is half the book.
Yeah,
it literally, the summon spell
is huge.
It's huge. It's ridiculous. I know this because I converted the whole book to digital for the SRD on OSRBeyond.com. Yeah. And that spell takes more, that one spell takes more than the rest of the entire spell book put together, the spell list, in digital format. I did not read it all the way through. I read the first part and I was like, oh, that sounds like something I'll have to dig into later and find out more about, because it is an interesting notion for a summon spell. I think it's like the foot gun that you hand every wizard.
Yes.
And you're like, well, congratulations, you know how magic works.
Yes.
And that means you can summon things from another dimension.
Yeah.
And as soon as he does that, he immediately regrets it.
Yeah.
And terrible things happen. And that's kind of, I think, that's probably the best part about it, is the fantasy of what it would actually be like to interact with an interdimensional creature. But in reality, this does not tend to play well at the table. And I've never seen it.
So, I've seen a version of it. I want to get into that in a second.
Yeah.
But just if you haven't played Lamentations, or you don't want to dig out the book right now.
Or you're under 18.
Don't don't play Lamentations.
Don't bother.
Wait a couple years. To get to it, you have to fail your saving throw when you cast the spell. Right. Then you roll a d20 on the results table. So there's a 5% chance, if you fail your save, that you will then roll on a d10 table of major catastrophes. You've called forward something truly awful, and it's gonna fuck your shit right up. Pardon my language.
And I think the region, it's not even just you. It's literally everybody who is present.
9 of those 10 results. So you roll the d20. If you roll a 20, you roll a d10. 9 of those results on that d10 table are campaign enders. And one of them is you have a slight statistical disadvantage for a few days. It's just wow. One of them is straight up unreadable. It's just it's A does not equal A, 1 equals 2, and then a bunch of gobbledygook. It's like Star Trek text speech a little bit, where it's just here's a bunch of words that feel like they mean things but do not. Okay. And it's totally unusable. It's basically just how did you ruin your campaign? Roll the d10.
Reality doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. You've broken it. The truth is not true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I think, if we have a Lamentations home game, if somebody were to cast Summon and they were to fail their saving throw and roll a 20, I would just say, okay, well, your wizard has been sucked into hell, and maybe the rest of you are cursed with the statistical improbability. Because I don't want sexual violence at my table. I don't want suicide at my table. I don't want.
It literally is in our lines and veils.
Yeah, I and no, if that's your idea of a good time, I guess. But I play these games to have fun.
Also, if you and your table are exploring those topics, and you've discussed it, and you feel like you can do that safely with each other, go with God. Nobody, you're a fucking adult. Yeah. You get to make your own decisions. You can read whatever kind of fiction you want, and I think this categorically falls under the umbrella of fiction.
Yeah. So,
yeah,
if I read this post on RO, so
yes,
I've been simmering on it a little bit.
Yeah. I've read about 20% of it. I think I stopped reading after the first day.
Yeah. So look,
I like to imagine that Austin was at home clicking refresh, waiting for the next dipshit.
I'm a little yeah. So listen, like we were kind of, you and I were talking about this earlier.
Yes.
And you and I were saying, or you and I were saying, you were saying to me that part of the issue is that on the internet, if you're recommending games, like we both recommend Lamentations, I think people should play it. It's great.
If you're an adult.
If you're an adult. But it's very easy to feel like you're an adult talking to other adults on the internet, and sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're speaking to children.
Well, I think the messed up thing about the internet is
you're always speaking.
You're always speaking forever now.
Yeah.
To whoever is reading.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, is like, unless you qualify literally every time you say something. And I don't know how they get around this with anime. Because, like, there is some anime out there that you're just like...
I like Ninja Scroll.
Seriously, dude? Exactly. Ninja Scroll. Sexual violence. It's in it.
Yeah.
And yet, you will see people regularly suggest, Ninja Scroll is one of the classics, right?
Is.
And
Akida's a classic.
Kids, exactly. And kids are going to see that on the internet.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how many people are jumping down those guys' throats and saying, why are you recommending this in a venue where children might read it? But I think that we all forget that the internet is a place where children are reading things.
That's a good point. But I think, too, it kind of like you say, like, if somebody asks me, like, hey, I hear David Fincher's a great director, where should I start? I'm going to say, check out Seven. And I'm not going to feel the need to qualify that with, by the way, Kevin Spacey is in this movie. He plays a dude who's even worse than Kevin Spacey is in real life. There's genital mutilation and sexual violence, and it's graphic, and it's awful. It's way the fuck worse than anything in Lamentations. That's rated R, so you can bring your kid to it. If you're an adult, you can bring a child in if you want. I mean, do I have to throw a signpost on that? It's an R-rated movie about serial killers. I think, if you're either an adult, you should see the rating and make that determination for yourself. Or if you're a kid, somebody should be watching what media you consume. And I feel like as a culture, we've kind of thrown our hands up and just been like, well, the kids are on the internet now. I don't know what the fuck we're going to do about it. And, if we can't, watch what media our kids are consuming, then maybe they shouldn't be on the internet. You know what I mean? Fucking hang me for that one. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, there's no way to put it back in the box, right? It's a Pandora's box.
Yeah.
Like, we aren't. I like to say we are not human anymore. Like, we are now a species completely modified by a technology that we have become dependent on.
Yeah.
If you took away our technology, what we think of as society would crumble and collapse. Because so much of it is built on just this digital technology. And by the way, this is not like a doomsday scenario that won't happen. This is like kind of a statistical inevitability for just the sun doing sun things over the next 1,000 years. Now that said, like, does that? I don't know. Like, I think that we have had hundreds of thousands, millions of years to evolve what we consider morality and ethics within the context of being, let's be honest, a violent sexual animal in constant competition for resources.
Yeah.
For the first time in human history, the formula has changed, and we're not humans anymore. We don't have nearly any of the previous motivators. A lot of the things that stood in our way of accomplishing things are now gone. They are just vanished.
Yep.
And this isn't happening as we reach adulthood. This is happening as we enter the world.
Yeah.
And I think we take for granted that the world is, and humans do this all the time, we take for granted that it is the way that it was when we were growing up.
Yeah.
It isn't. Now, we're way afield now of what we were kind of the point we were getting at. So why don't you
Well,
bring us back home.
sure. So my point is, I think that I have two things to say. I think one, it speaks to where we are as a culture, that we've become entirely neotenized. We're locked in childhood. An algorithmic internet kind of provides us with tailored content constantly. So when we see things that aren't for us, the natural reaction is to go, "Why are you giving this to me?" And that's ridiculous. If you're a grown adult, you should be able to encounter things that you don't like and just go, "Oh, I don't like that part.
Yeah.
I will exclude that one part."
Not for me.
Yeah. And the second thing I want to say is I think it also speaks to where we are as a community, like an RPG community, because our entire discourse has kind of come to this place where people looking for clout are harvesting content by clutching their pearls about shit that really I don't think is meaningful. Like, I mean, an X-rated book contains sexual violence. Like, well, it also contains violence. So is the part of sexual violence that tweaks you the sex or the violence? And if you think that it's the sex part rather than the hurting other people part, then I kind of raise an eyebrow at that and I say, well, it's what are we talking about here? Like, you're fine with cutting some dude's head in half, but the idea of like calling in demonic impregnation monsters is like, that's time out now, fellas. Like,
Yeah.
It's just, why are we so intent on defining ourselves by what we don't like? Why are we always on the lookout to, harden our communities or unite our communities by pointing out enemies or, calling certain groups of people, accusing them of wrongthink or,
Yeah, and you know what? It's weird to say this, but I think that it ultimately this is a product of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we historically have never had communities that reach global, instantaneous scale.
Yeah.
The RPG community, when you were growing up, was the people you knew who played RPGs.
Yeah.
Literally within your arm's reach.
Yeah.
Anybody outside of that was going to be a RPG, associate at best. Somebody you had heard of. Now, like, it's almost like we're all in one big room, and we're expected to get along. But that's just not how human cultures or communities have ever worked. We always galvanize around being attacked by an outsider.
Yeah.
Collective belief, groupthink. Connecting with each other because we disagree about that thing over there.
Yeah.
Or we agree to disagree about that thing.
Yeah.
Right. We agree that we both hate that thing.
Yeah.
And so that thing is the other, and we are the thing that hates that. That's classic human.
Yeah.
So I think expecting a digital community of people to be able to get their shit together and evolve is maybe a tall order.
Yeah.
The thing that I'm seeing that you kind of talk about as like pearl clutching for clout seems to me like it's like the merits of virtue signaling, right? Like, if you're gonna nobody wants to kill kids.
Yeah.
Right? So if you say out loud, well, I'm
against it.
I'm against killing kids.
Yeah.
You are obviously going to get everybody who doesn't agree with killing kids, to agree with you. And they're going to be like, oh, what, bravo. And congratulations on your meaningless clap. You did nothing to save a kid from getting killed. There are lots of reasons that kids get killed. What did you do to prevent it? You got patted on the back on the fucking internet?
Yeah.
Waste your time in better ways. There are better ways. Now that said, we all crave acceptance, know? And I think while this drug is pumping out, good luck getting off of it.
Yeah. It's interesting. I feel like there's a lot of people on Twitter that I follow. I'm a Twitter.
I got him on Twitter. It was my fault.
Awful. Never forgive you.
At Austin Holm Words.
Yeah, come at me.
Come at him. He needs it.
Fuck me up.
Take him down a peg.
I have a lot of terrible views. Ask me online. What are we talking about? Yeah, I think that's, there's a lot of people I follow on Twitter because they had some spicy hot take about something that I don't like, something like they were like, oh, here's what's wrong with Pathfinder 2nd edition, or here's this, or here's like, here's what I think about, certain political parties in America. You know what I'm talking about. Um, and it's just like I'm like, oh, like I agree with that. I don't like those people either, and I follow them. And then it's just like now the stream of vitriol is just like in my life, and I'm just like, ah, God, like why did I, expose myself? Yeah, I let myself be fooled because you don't like the same people I don't like. So I thought we were in a tribe, and now I've got someone in my ear constantly, just like, do it. Do it.
You hate them.
Yeah, I'm just like, get out. Like
they're sending their kids to vaccinate your
yeah.
dog.
Obama sent the immigrants to vaccinate your kids. Yeah, and I'm just like,
thanks, Bo.
Yeah, thank you, Bo Burnham.
You actually literally caused my relationship to exist.
Yeah?
Yeah. Bo Burnham, we must have watched Inside
Big ups.
50 times.
Bo Burnham spreading the love.
Right at the beginning of the relationship.
Nice. Well, there's one way to make sure you have the same values. But see, this is the thing, though, right? It's like, how do we get the community to stop being like, 4th edition sucks. If you play 5th edition, you're a Nazi. If you play 4th edition, you're an MMO nerd. If you,
I didn't hear anything that was false there.
Yeah, well, see, this is the problem.
Just kidding.
Yeah, we did play 5th edition last night. Let's cool it.
So, yeah, no, so I mean, I think, like, part of the problem is that, well, maybe the biggest problem is that moderation doesn't sell.
Yeah.
So having a moderate viewpoint, while it is probably more common,
yeah,
is not the kind of thing that gets clicks on the internet.
Yeah.
And it turns out we chase clicks on the internet. And it's actually one of the reasons that, I don't know if you know this, listener, but Watcher DM is not a broadly seen brand. We do not have a ton of visitors. If you can change that, please do. But realistically, like, the fact that I loathe advertising and marketing as a spiritual being, I hate it with every part of my being. Like, I literally have paid for every streaming thing
to avoid,
or pirated it for the last 15 years to avoid having shit planted in my brain.
Yeah.
It's insane. And I still can't avoid it. I end up watching YouTube channels, and now they all just put the fucking commercial right in the middle.
Yeah.
So you can't get rid of it. You can't get away from it. And at some level, our success in the modern world is measured by it.
Sure.
Right? If you're a business, you have to have an online presence. And that online presence has to hit certain marks for it to be considered a success or to be even taken seriously.
Yeah.
And so, to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're kind of hovering around here, there is, to go back to Lamentations, James Raggi wrote the introduction for Vaginas Are Magic, which is a fantastic book that is just full of the most awful dreck that I will never put in a game. Really, really terrible. Like, if you think the fucking core book is bad, hold your breath. But the introduction is interesting because he basically says, look, people give me crap all the time for the sex and violence in these books.
Right.
And, I know I could have gone mainstream. I could have gone bland. I could have gone general audience. But the truth is that WotC, and to a lesser extent Paizo, I guess, they have that locked up. If you want bland fantasy, you're going to play bland fantasy.
There's plenty on the table.
Yeah, there's a lot. And he says, look, maybe I could have been successful another way, but all I knew was that I had to be, true to myself. Like I had to embrace what was unique and weird about my point of view and what I'm an anxious person who has a lot of sexual hang-ups, and I'm live in fear, and like, this is when you turn my brain upside down and shake it, this is what fell out. And maybe that's gross, and maybe that's appalling, and maybe I'm a terrible bad Nazi person, but like, I'm who I am, and people seem to have responded, and controversy sells.
Yeah, and I think that like, that's the thing, right? Is there is no such thing as bad publicity.
Yeah.
So people yelling about your bad thing on the internet are still yelling about your thing.
Yeah. And I think we have 2 more stops on our tour today.
Yeah.
We'd like to talk about summoning spells a little bit.
So the heart of this controversy started with, or the heart of the post.
Yes, was the summon spell.
Was the summon spell. Now, I kind of tapped that the summon spell, while interesting,
Super interesting.
is not tremendously usable.
Not very usable.
It's pretty useless.
So I recently played in a playtest for an upcoming Lamentations thing. I'm not going to say what because I didn't sign an NDA, but I don't know if I'm supposed to say it. But good guy, just looking out for the people.
Looking out for the people.
But anyway, it contained a spell called Summon Spirit, which was a variant of the summon spell. It had, let's call them the raggyisms, stripped out. There was no campaign ending shenanigans if you rolled poorly. But similar idea where you pick a number of hit dice, you roll attributes, you're rolling body shape, then you roll to control it. Casting it, and again, this is a pared down version. This is the economized, ease of use ergonomic version. Casting it took a good 15 minutes, I would say. Like literally, we were setting up an ambush, and the rest of the party did shit for like 12-15 minutes while I figured out what spirit I was casting while I rolled up my spirit. And then it almost immediately derailed the game because as soon as it took damage, I had to roll to control it. I rolled a 1. It swore vengeance on me for summoning it to the material plane, and
as you do.
It was basically a bigger threat than the encounter that we had summoned it to deal with. And so through shenanigans, I ended up kind of arranging a situation where it couldn't move towards me. So it ended up collaborating with our enemies, and they were like, if you kill the spellcaster, I'll take care of the spellcaster's friends. The entire session was derailed. It was hilarious and fun. Everybody died except me. I ran away into a forest fire. I burned down a forest and cast protection from fire and fucking fled into the inferno. Everybody else was turned into a hedgehog or died.
And that's how you play test.
That's how you play test a game. So yeah, like not entirely ideal. I think there's a lot of like the tables and stuff, the rules about thaumaturgic circles and sacrifices and blah blah blah. That's great flavor stuff. It looks really interesting. Like when you look at the summon spell, you're like, ooh, like this, this is really some good mechanical juice here about tearing open the veil and letting something else in. But at the table, it doesn't. I'm going to tell you, it's not going to work very well.
Yeah, much like random treasure.
Yeah.
Do not roll it at the table. Roll it beforehand.
Yeah. That's really great advice. Yeah. So, and I think, but the other thing is that 5th edition with like summon woodland creature or like summon 8 pixies who are gonna polymorph you into a T-Rex and you've all read fucking copy pasta.
Do you know the fairy T-Rex trick?
Yeah, Google fairy T-Rex trick and come right back. So 5th edition summoning doesn't work either.
So the biggest problem with 5th edition summoning,
yeah,
if I may,
please,
is action economy.
Yes,
it immediately breaks
100%.
The worst, arguably the worst thing about 5th edition
is the action economy.
Which is that the more characters you control, the longer combat takes.
Yeah.
Period.
I think there's also something really integral to the fantasy where it's like we, the heroes, are banding together to defeat the evil who is stronger than us. So all 4 of us are fighting the one of it, which is a bad place to start from an action economy. Like the fiction, if you're giving the monster 1 action a turn, and not nearly enough monsters in 5th have legendary actions. If you're giving just a monster 1 action a turn and you've got 4 or 5 PCs, I mean, you're already in kind of like, well, what do we really do in your territory?
Wizards of the Coast has actually moved away from legendary actions and has started putting those abilities as reactions on the monsters.
Yeah.
Because DMs forget to use legendary actions.
Yeah.
They forget about them. If you don't know how legendary actions work, legendary actions can happen anytime another character has gone.
Ends their turn.
So at the end of any creature's turn, the boss with legendary actions can take one of their legendary actions and use up to, I think, 3 points is the general. It's like it's always 3 points.
Yeah, they have 3.
They have 3 legendary actions. Some actions take more or less.
Yeah, the lowest CR one is the unicorn at 5, which dumb.
And the legendary action pool, the 3 points, refill at the end of the round.
Yeah.
So every round, a monster with legendary actions can do usually up to like 3 things, kind of reacting to other people's movements.
Plus a main action.
Which Huge. This is actually kind of, this is giving those 3 additional. If you 4 on 1, this is the other 3, right?
I was really happy when we did Dark Side of the Mind and we got that chef, the squishy dwarf mimic infected chef. We gave him legendary actions because he had beard tentacles.
Beard tentacles.
Really great.
Yeah, and they're holding little knives.
Yeah. What's the name of the author? Ethan
Meyer from he's Liars for Hire.
Yeah.
If you ever
that is a great. If social media that is not a constant stream of vitriol, Liars for Hire is awesome, funny, highly recommend. Yeah, check him out on Instagram.
Hashtag not sponsored. We just love him.
I'm a fan.
He's a great guy.
You're great.
And it was just super fun working with him to create that module.
Sorry, I derailed us to plug.
No, that was great. We should do that more often. We're terrible at this.
Consume. We're assholes.
Okay, so
all right.
So we were talking about summoning. So
yeah,
you've got on the one hand the useless but flavorful stuff.
Yeah.
From Lamentations of the Flame Princess. On the other hand, you've got the pretty clunky, kind of unusable stuff from 5e.
Yeah.
That has, I would argue, very little flavor.
Yeah.
If any.
No, it's yeah.
What should summoning look like in an RPG?
I've been thinking about this for the last hour or two since we decided that we would mention this.
I've actually been thinking about this since Final Fantasy VII.
I was gonna say Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy. Well, to me, I'm not a 7 guy.
6. Let's call it a 6.
Oh wow, yeah. Well, this is the generation gap, folks.
These kids these days.
I'm an 8 or 9 guy. I like 8 and 9.
8 and 9 were both fantastic.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I loved them.
Yeah.
But I got my roots back in. Of course,
yeah. My disc for 7 was scratched, so I could never get past the first disc when I was a kid. That's why I don't like 7.
Oh, my broken heart.
I know.
But you have finished it.
No, I've got the remaster, so I've finished the remaster on PS4, and I'm waiting for, the sequel.
I have the original.
Really?
Yeah, on my Switch.
Folks, my life just changed.
We're gonna actually get him to play. Let's do it on stream.
You want to?
Yeah, you want to play Final Fantasy VII all the way through on stream?
I'll be editorializing. You know that.
No, fuck yeah.
All right, let's do it.
If you heard it here first, if you want to watch it, we're gonna get Austin Holm to stream his playthrough, his first time playthrough of Final Fantasy VII.
Let's do it.
And he's gonna talk a lot of shit. It's gonna be good.
A lot.
And summons.
Yeah. So summons. So I think I loved the summoning in 8 and 9. I think 9 particularly, if my memory is correct, is the one where you summon, your party runs away, and then it's like you just control the summoned creature. He fights like a regular guy, but he's super strong. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good place to look for D&D. I like the idea that the summoner is maintaining the summon. It's one big creature that you are now temporarily playing, so it's kind of in the vein of like a barbarian rage or like an alchemist, like the Pathfinder first edition Jekyll form. I don't know what they actually call that, but I always think of it as the Jekyll Hyde thing. It was awesome. It was one of my favorite parts of first edition Pathfinder.
Pathfinder had some good juice in it. The original Pathfinder was pretty good. I'll be honest, actually, before I came back to 5e, I went through Pathfinder because I knew it was like, I was like, well, they did 4th edition, and I don't want to get you guys started on that. And I didn't know that 5th edition was out, so I was like, well, we'll just pick up Pathfinder and we'll use that because it's the closest thing to what I know, 3.5.
My wife, God bless her soul, I had not been playing RPGs for a little while, and she bought the Pathfinder first edition rulebook, which, as you'll recall, is a door stopper. Yeah. It's huge. It's all 3 core books in one, basically. Yeah. And then was kind of like, I don't know how to play this, and I sure wish someone would teach me. It's just like, all right, like... You coquettish little minx, you've dragged me back in. But yeah, I love first edition Pathfinder, and I think that something like that, something like a substitution summon spell could be quite good, where the summoner is like, maintaining the thing, and now they have a temporary juiced up form that can do stuff is good. Yeah. 3rd edition in the Psionics Handbook, there was a class that could kind of like summon mind creatures. Mm-hmm. That was kind of fun. It was like a points build thing where you built your monster beforehand, so you weren't rolling random tables at the table. English is my first language.
He talks a lot.
I talk a lot. Yeah. So you built it beforehand, and then you could be like, okay, now my crab-faced donkey monster is here to kick your ass. And it was awesome.
Yeah, that sounds super cool.
So that's kind of like, I think that's the fix, because you're right. When you're adding goons, you're messing with the action economy. It could work for something like Troika, maybe, which
Well,
is a little bit more resistant to that.
So Troika uniquely is kind of resistant to action economy.
Yeah.
Its solution for this is that the initiative system is not an initiative system of who goes first. It is an initiative system of who goes.
Yeah, it's like a lottery.
And when anything attacks anything else, it is not a unidirectional attack.
Yeah.
Both sides are attacking. So if I attack the monster and fail, the monster has actually hit me, not I failed to hit it.
Yeah.
So there is no action that doesn't have a consequence in Troika.
Yeah.
But their entire rounds can go by where no actions are taken.
Yeah.
Which
honestly
feels it happens at every game.
Yeah.
I've never had a game where it didn't happen.
Yeah.
I think there might be there's a utility missing there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like because almost invariably every time it's like, oh well, nothing happened for a minute, and that's really not what it's saying, right? It's saying that bullshit happened for a minute, like a bunch of shenanigans happened for a minute, but the tools for explaining that, describing that, or utilizing that are gone. They just don't exist.
I like that a lot. Maybe like just a kind of thing of like explain how your character buffooned the round.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. What silly crap did you do this round that had no effect on anything?
Yeah.
And you can totally describe, I shifted my belt around and pulled out my dagger and I dropped my gum and,
dropped my weapon, picked it up, dropped it, picked it up.
Exactly. Or like, oh, we did the Three Stooges, running around in a circle around the chair thing. Like, answer the question. It's just going to be fun. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, another problem for another day. Summoning. We're back on summoning. Yeah. Can we finish?
Sure. What do you think about, like, how would you fix something? What's the move, do you figure?
So I think that let's call it Eidolon, kind of type of summoner is sadly not represented.
Yeah.
In Dungeons and Dragons. I think it would be a fantastic.
It's a core fantasy.
It is a core fantasy.
Like a necromancer. Like, how many times have you introduced someone to the game and you've been like, what do you want to play? And they say, a necromancer. And then you set them up with a necromancy wizard and they're like, this is
lame.
Chilling Touch, Ray of Frost, like Enervation, Gentle Repose. I want a fucking skeleton army. I want to be playing Diablo 2 with my blood golem and my 17 skeletons and my resurrected mugwump I just murdered. Like,
but I think that ultimately that hits the same problem, right? So,
you're into the action economy thing there.
Yeah. So Necromancer. So actually, in second edition, there was a whole book. It was a blue book.
Yeah.
That was the Necromancer's Handbook. It was not a red book because it was not designed to be a player-facing set of rules, but you could use it to create PCs.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic. The spells in it were awesome. They were flavorful. Like, the first one was, like, create dead animal. So you just, like, could basically raise dead animals.
Nice.
Which, super useful if you want to have, like, an undead fucking pet running around your little familiar and stuff.
Why not?
To drop into bones, drop them in a thing, and have them come back up and stuff. Yeah. Super fun. Now, I think that the solution to the problem of summoning is actually probably not to try and fix how summoning is done, but instead create better rules for doing group combat as like a swarm. So if I have summoned 8 poisonous snakes, don't treat that as 8 individual attacks. Have better mechanics for dealing with a swarm of poisonous snakes. Make it a swarm of poisonous snakes if that's what you have to do, but anything you can do to kind of congeal the action economy and the impact of its actions into a single move, I think supports the kind of play that people are going to want to do, an army of skeletons, and solves the problem. And then I think in addition to that, having like really solid, strong, and eminently usable but high flavor single target summoning abilities that are channeled. So it is something you don't see in Dungeons and Dragons. Concentration is not really a good substitute for what I consider channeling to be. But like, channeling is like your movement is halved. You don't get any reactions, bonus actions, or actions on your turn. They're all consumed by this.
Your action is, I keep channeling.
Yeah. you can maybe move 15 feet around, but you've got to keep that power going. You got to keep that connection running, and it takes everything you've got to do so.
I think that
creates the scenario where you put a lot at stake.
Yeah.
Right? You're at risk. You've really limited what you can do, but then you've brought something onto the table that should reflect. Right. So like summoning a demon is kind of a good, and there is, summon extra planar creature, I think, in Dungeons and Dragons in 5th edition, that kind of floats near this. But it ultimately does kind of something similar to what Raggies does, in that if you bop on the demon, it's just going to kill your whole party, or it's going to at least try to. So better have a banish ready.
Yeah, that was one thing I learned in my playtest: is if you're going to summon a spirit, you should also have exorcism.
Yes, yes.
Good advice for regular life.
It's good advice for anyone.
Yeah.
Going to the gas station. Exorcism in the tank.
There we go.
Also,
you are using the power of the dead there.
Yeah, never write off the power of a bunch of salt. So just you don't if they can't cross it, they don't have to be inside of it. They just have to be on the other side of it than you.
Yeah.
You can be on the inside of a salt circle.
That's fine.
And let the world burn. You made it.
So I think we've cracked the code here. I think we're pretty much in agreement about what summoning should look like.
I think we've come up with a couple of pretty clever ideas about how to do summoning. I think we could probably codify.
We're always talking that we should do more player-facing stuff.
We should do any player-facing stuff.
That is true. Maybe this is it. Some Summoner's Handbook.
Would you like to see the Summoner's Handbook from Watcher DM?
Mention in the
should
comments.
Sound off. You should tell us on social media, or send us a carrier pigeon.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think we
message
have to
in a bottle.
Raise the carrier pigeon and send it to them, I think is how that works.
So do the message in a bottle first.
Get a smart.
If we don't get back to you about the message in a bottle,
then
we'll talk about pigeons on the next podcast episode.
As long as we're telling you to do stuff, you should comment, and just subscribe, because you've listened to 40 minutes of this, so obviously you don't hate our guts. We could use your help. Comment, subscribe.
Yeah, totally. And if you want to support us, I guess you can go pick up any of our products on WatcherDM.com. So the logo, look for the purple eye. It also comes in white and black. We've kind of got a logo transition that we do.
Buy my hat.
Buy the hat. We've got, actually on our website, it's got like hoodies and notebooks, and I love mine. I gotta show you guys my notebook. It's so pretty. Is it even over here? My big fat liar. Look at this thing. So this is one of our notebooks here. It's got such cool art from our Divisible Man.
Yeah.
And the inside is bullet graph paper. So it's great for doing little maps and doing little sketches and tables and stuff. I just love these things. I actually ordered 5 more of them because I need them because I keep running out.
Okay. So we've done our hypocritical plugging.
No, not yet. Drive-through RPG, itch.io. You can do both of those things and get what you need. And then if you still want to support us, you haven't done enough, go to patreon.com/WatcherDM and sign up to be a patron. You'll get some extra stuff too. I do art there, and sometimes I try and convince Austin to write. I usually do writing there.
As a treat, since you stuck with us through that, let's go back to Spicy Talking.
Spicy Talking, all right.
Let's talk about controversy as a marketing tool, and because we did
an accidental controversy.
Oh,
kind of.
I think we've done a couple intentional ones.
We did a couple intentional controversies.
We may have poked the bear a few times. But yeah, what do you talk about?
Well, I was thinking of Camp Kingdom Come.
Yeah.
As it wasn't really, I don't know. I guess at some point we did say, hey, this is probably going to offend some Christians.
I think if you know what? Okay, so I'm a Bible reading sort of guy. I don't know that I'm religious or I believe in God, but I'm literary.
Yeah, sure.
And I gotta say, I think there's a bit of a, don't want to offend anybody. Your life is your own, and I don't want to judge you. No judgment. That's a Christian thing. I don't want to judge you, but
it's in the book.
It's in the book. Read a book. You can read Luke and John and the Sermon on the Mount. You can skip the rest.
Pretty much.
But yeah, I think there's, this is a controversial opinion. I don't know if anybody's said this before, but I think there might be a slight mismatch between the way that religion is practiced in the 21st century and some of the values that are in the book.
Sure.
And
I don't even think that's controversial at this point.
no, have people said that? I don't.
I think most Christians feel like they're the only Christian.
Yeah.
And like I'm the only one being Christian around here.
Yeah.
And that in itself, by the way, is a judgy ass non-Christian thing to think.
Yeah,
so
I think
if that's you, check the mirror, babe.
Yeah, I think I think the Bible has some things to say about the public practice of religion. Maybe read it. But I also think too, like for a game about kids dying at camp.
So this is actually what I was like.
Yeah.
I said Camp Kingdom Come, but we never explained what that is.
No, yeah.
We produced a game, and it was a pocket quest for Drive-Thru RPG. So they were having their first game jam.
Inaugural
Game jam, and we joined, and it was camp, summer camp was the theme.
Yes.
And so we were like, oh, okay, well let's come up with some ideas. We came up with a bunch of ideas. One of them was like, we were going to do a
Moonrise
Kingdom game. You had another idea.
I love Moonrise Kingdom, by the way.
It's great. I think we're both Wes Anderson.
Yeah, he's good.
Nerds. You had another idea that was kind of out there, and then
it kind of became Quest Crawl a little bit. That idea.
I think so.
Yeah, because we were talking about the terrain, but ultimately we settled.
Well, Alex came up with
friend Alex Cameron. Grew up going to Bible camp, and he had some fun stories and things to say, and he wanted to write it with us, and that didn't end up happening for a couple of reasons, but he did give us the idea, and we developed it, and
anyway, the pitch was you go to Bible camp, and it turns out it's the end of the world. It's the end of days, or whatever the biblical, whatever your apocalypse is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And so for 7 days, this is happening in camp, while this kind of crazy camp counselor owner guy is like slowly circling the drain of his, terrible existence,
trying to pay off occult powers with the lives of the kids under his care.
Exactly. And so it's, while on the surface you could read it and go, oh well, this looks like a nice wholesome
you
thing. I think if you looked at the cover, you might just mistakenly think, oh, this is looks like good wholesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. It's all the kids die almost invariably.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of kids die.
I think the best. So Queer XP did a playthrough. Ross Howell did an AP of it. We've had a couple APs of it. I think the best I've seen is like maybe all the camp counselors die, everybody gets stabbed, and like 3 or 4 kids make it home. Like that's a win.
It's a pretty deadly game.
Yeah.
And it owes some of that to your, I'd say, creative capacity for like a really solid 2d6 system using cards.
Thank you.
Like this is not the first time you've kind of hit a home run.
Oh.
Systems wise.
I'm on second at best.
Okay, well, yeah.
But
you
no,
hit a double. But one of the, obviously there's marketing factors involved. So when you make a book like this,
yeah,
great, congratulations, you've written something, and nobody's going to look at it because you haven't gotten them to click on your stupid thing, right? Mm-hmm. In our case, we were super lucky that it was for a game jam. And if you're a publisher and you're listening, this is something you can learn. Take this to the bank. Go get into game jams. They are free publicity. Everybody in that game jam who is competing with you is going to be checking out your stuff to compete with you, even if they're not doing it intentionally.
Yeah.
Because they want to see what everybody else is doing. That's just kind of how it works. You should kind of be doing that too. It's a great way to get stuff out there. Yeah. And when something hits, it will hit a little bit harder. You'll get some stuff. In the case of Drive-Thru RPG, of course, they were also promoting everything in this thing. Basically, the next month, they did a whole big promotion.
Yeah.
And so, actually, Camp Kingdom Come is now also one of our. It's a best copper seller on Drive-Thru RPG.
It's about to hit silver, I think. It's not too far off.
It's creeping closer to silver. We had a huge Cyber Monday yesterday with it. I think we sold like 20 copies of it yesterday.
I think, yeah.
Crazy. But we owe some of that to being controversial.
Yeah.
We basically kind of said, like, if you had trauma from being in Bible camp as a kid,
yeah,
this game might be for you. It's got a bit of comeuppance in it. It's got some kind of,
yeah.
there's some middle fingers flying at the ideas behind conservative Christianity.
It's a little bit about being a kid growing up in a moralistic system that doesn't follow its own rules. And
right.
There's a lot of stuff in it about, like, I think the boons you get and, like, the bonuses you get are often things that are like, oh, like, you're forgiving, or you love somebody else, or you accept somebody else, or you've discovered who you are and you've come to terms with that, or like, and then it's like the bad things that happen to you are like, like you tried to go boating on a lake, and everybody made fun of you for being a little weak ass canoe boy, and then a beaver with 10,000 hungry eyes ate you, like, like,
as they do.
Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, I think that there is something to be said about the sales of that, where people kind of go, oh, like, I also had that bad experience, and I want to recoup it in a playful, innocuous form.
Well, and so I think, like, at some level, absolutely. Also, though, just the pure, like, standout value of being something that you don't see everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, there are not a ton of biblically named RPG games out there for obvious reasons, right? It's kind of the anti-satanic panic.
Yeah.
Calling your game Camp Kingdom Come is like a dog whistle for Christendom, right? Like, you've put it on the label.
Yeah.
And I think by virtue of that alone, you're going to get more eyes on it. We kind of hit something similar with Quest Crawl, in the sense that the cover of it is this really bizarre looking, kind of evocative, like, reverse heart spade thing over a gloomy, dark castle.
It's a cool image.
It's a cool image. Now, it was generated by AI. We've always been really public about our AI usage.
Yeah.
We try not to use it when we can, but... And, it's funny, Mike Shea, I was watching Mike Shea earlier.
Yeah.
And he did this whole promo about some product. And in that product, they're using generative AI to finish some of the artwork. Okay. And he was like, he basically put the caveat. He was like, if you're selling something for $5 and it wouldn't have existed without using generative AI, go with God. Like, you're fine. If you're trying to sell a $50 book, and you're Paizo, or you're Wizards of the Coast, and I was like, God, finally somebody said it. Like, don't get me wrong, I wish the AI lords weren't taking over our jobs also, but holy smokes, it's such a powerful tool.
Yeah.
Having used it for Warp Crawl to enormous effect. And if you look at Warp Crawl, it's not like we didn't work on this book. We worked very hard on that book. The art is a supplement to the design.
It's just meant to sort of set a tone or kind of break up the words. I'm not, nobody's trying to, I'm not trying to make you cry. Like, I'm not trying to give you an emotional experience with this art.
Right.
It's illustration.
Right. It's illustration, and it's trying to be representative of what's being explained in the book so that we don't have to write more words. Turns out that's value for you. Like, I don't understand this concept that people are like, more pages is more value. It's not. If you can get the same information across in less words, that's value. And you value your time. So Warp Crawl, I think, was a good example of us kind of saying, like, here's, we're going to bite the AI bullet. We're going to use it because this wouldn't have existed otherwise.
Right.
It was too big to fit. Like, we had the one-pager for Quest Crawl. So all this Quest Crawl stuff's all started with a one-pager, which looked super evocative. It was a little pamphlet, had this really cool art on the front, and then the rest was just text. It was like, good layout and text with a little smattering of art here and there. But having that bizarre, gloomy castle with a highly recognizable symbol on it, and this kind of crunchy font, I felt like really stood out against the backdrop of a bunch of the other stuff. Now, there's great stuff. It was done with a one-page RPG jam. And so within that jam, we hit some really good strides in terms of popularity within that.
Yeah.
And I think some portion of that had to do with just kind of sticking out This was right at the beginning of AI art. Almost nothing else in the jam had AI generated art.
It was Midjourney 3, which I don't know if it kind of looked like if you like gave Monet like a fucking kilo of ketamine and then just let him loose to finger paint. It was sloppy in the best way. It was really cool. Good. It was dreamlike. It was weird. It was alien. We used it in Camp Kingdom Come. It came out in the same month.
Yeah, that's right. Those were both done in the same month.
Yeah,
which was crazy. We pumped out a lot of work that month. Both 2d6 games or d6 games
that run on a deck of cards.
With deck of cards, yeah.
I think I just had a bug that month. I was like, oh, there should be more RPGs with playing cards in them, and they're just like we had like 7 ideas, and we took
Balance of the Beatdown.
Oh my god!
Yeah, we gotta kick that out. So, and actually, there is such a thing out there as a duet RPG.
Yes.
And I was like, we just need to polish Balance of the Beatdown into a duet RPG and publish it.
It works as a duet RPG, but I really want to play it as a party game where you get Balance in the Beatdown is it's like a Mortal Kombat kind of fighting Karate Kid
Battle Royale.
Battle Royale. Kind of based on the rules of like King's Cup a little bit, where you're balancing cards on a pivot. And if you lose the balance of the cards, then you've lost your balance and you get beat down. The question there, I think we were trying to build a game that had skill-based combat rather than chance-based combat. Was kind of the start of that. That's another podcast. Maybe we can talk about how that works and when it doesn't and what's good about it and what's bad. But I do really want to see the version where you just bring 8 people over to your house and you're like, okay, pick a ridiculous Street Fighter character, on Johnny Cage, I make this look easy, but your own creative version of that, whatever.
Yeah.
And then just do head-to-head elimination style, and kind of you get to say your losing thing or your your winning catchphrase.
And I think that's part of the character creation is come up with your catchphrase, come up with your whatever your losing vow.
My karate was not strong enough. Ha ha. As long as we're talking about controversy, I can see the life draining from your face a little bit. Pig-faced killers, I feel like we have.
Interesting. That's funny. I actually don't think of that as a very controversial.
We got so much hate mail.
Of course we did.
Yeah, I mean,
we got so much hate mail in that we got any hate mail at all.
Yeah,
I got a couple of people.
We got 5 pieces of hate mail.
Yeah. Ah! I got a bunch of people who were angry. Who obviously didn't read the module.
Yes.
And then I got a bunch of comments on Drive-Thru RPG that were then eventually deleted.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is, Pig-Faced Killers is on the surface, and really, if you read it, it is about corrupted power.
Yeah.
And we represent that via the corrupted city guard who have had their faces they're turned into pig monsters,
cursed,
throughout their first year of recruitment to show their level of injustice.
Yeah.
It's literally a magical curse in a magical fantasy town.
Yeah.
Now, does it have analogs in the United States justice system? You fucking better believe it. Is there a place to have that conversation in a D&D table? Yeah, sure. We talk about injustice all the time. Yeah. It's literally part of the game to have injustice. If you're not dealing with cop pigs, you might be dealing with cop orcs.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same kind of concept. It's the monster that is powerful and doesn't care about you. And so I think the way that it was represented, the way that it was written was absolutely on the nose. And that's what I liked about it. It was not we were not going to steer away from the controversy of it. I thought it was well written. I thought it was enjoyable. Mm-hmm. Playing it was fun.
So, written by the inimitable Jesse Brown.
GMJ. If you're looking for him out there on the internet.
He's on Start Playing Games. He runs fun games.
He runs super fun games. He runs Quest a lot. And he's published things outside of
a comic book or two.
Yeah, he wrote Ithaca. Was him and his brother doing a graphic novel.
Yeah.
And then he also published the Black Knight Prestige class for Quest.
Right.
And the Black Helmet as a magic item for Quest. There's a little bit of publishing outside of working with us, but we were very lucky to work with him on a number of projects.
Yeah. Now, I want to say, Well, I remember when this was kind of going through the editing process. Yeah, you were asking me, you were like, "What do you think of this?" And I, my politically, I am not an ACAB guy. My feeling is very strongly that the American bureaucratic system positions leftists and the labor class and minorities in such a way that they're meant to be opposed to police and the military and gun ownership and anything that would allow them to seize power from the ownership class. And I think that's entirely intentional, and fuck you guys. But
Sure.
anyways, I think it's super...
I can't disagree with any of that.
Yeah, I mean, cops are working people, in my opinion, and that's a controversial thing these days, but that's how I feel. That being said, you have to be able to call the authorities pigs. Like, if you can't talk shit about people in authority, you live in a totalitarian dictatorship. You have to be able to punch. If you can't punch up, then, well, you've lost everything.
Right.
And so I think it's really interesting that, we've published so many modules that are, in my opinion, way more out there than Pig-Faced Killers in terms of, like, the, having kind of an alien value set or, whatever you want to call it. But that was the one that really got people excited, that they were like, oh, like, how dare you say such a thing? How could you and it's like, my dude, like, out the window, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, and I think, Pig-Faced Killers is also a perfectly good example of, like, you can't rely on that publicity to get you anything, right? Because in the end, Pig-Faced Killers, while it drummed up a bit of controversy and got us some hate mail, and I'm pretty sure I had a cop threaten me.
Yeah, nice.
Oh yeah, it was like, you better hope you don't. Ooh. Yeah, he was like, you better hope you don't get arrested anytime soon, and I was like, okay.
Sounds like somebody qualified for the job.
Yeah, right. But despite that, it's one of the worst performing modules we published.
It is a 5 from dungeon.
It's a 5 from dungeon. It's also a 5e module, which I have to say, in the realm of publishing, if you are a publisher and you're thinking about getting into this game, I would avoid 5e like the plague. Not because it's not a good system, not because it's not what you're probably writing for already, because that's probably why you're doing this, right? Like, if you're getting into publishing, I know I was like, oh, look at this rich ecosystem. I could do creative stuff like this. This sounds super fun. Let's get in there. Let's make some 5e modules. I think that has turned out to largely be not a mistake, but like not probably the best use of anybody's time.
Yeah.
Because it's a sea out there. There's a billion things being created every day for 5e, and 90% of them are free. And so it's kind of impossible, unless you are literally Wizards of the Coast or you already have a platform, to get seen. Mm-hmm. Like, you will sell a trickle, you'll be able to create a little bit of revenue, but if you charge even a modest amount for your work, you're looking at probably mostly ending up in the dustbin in terms of usage. Now, we were a little bit lucky in that we almost immediately after our first couple of modules, we pivoted to a format that nobody else was doing.
Yeah.
We said, we're going to make these really compact pamphlet style 5e adventures.
Yeah.
The upshot to that, while the sales have still not been stellar, right? They're still the same basically place in terms of, sales for modules for 5e. The nice thing about those is that the cost is really much reduced. We were able to bring the cost of art down to something super reasonable, and layout and editing, it's 2 sheets of paper. You're able to 2 sides of a single sheet of paper. Mm-hmm. You're able to really,
it's usable, it's producible,
and ultimately I think what it comes down to is it was embracing the value of less is more. Mm-hmm. Can we, with the same amount of space, deliver can we deliver 15 pages worth of RPG material on a 2-page spread?
Don't want to point any fingers, but I think there's like Long Bear Valley is a 2-page module that has more content than most 20-page modules.
It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I honestly think our 5e 2-page adventures almost across the board deliver more value by virtue of them being smaller than other competitive modules. Now, that's not to say that they are better. Obviously, there are adventures out there that are fantastic. I respect our peers. I think for everybody out there who's publishing 5e stuff and doing it at a level of quality where they're using bespoke art, which, by the way, is what we were doing.
Yeah.
Like, we're commissioning every piece of art. I can't tell you how expensive. It's very expensive.
A lot of artists ate well in 2022 or whatever that
2021, 2022.
Yeah, those were some good time to be doing D&D art in Vancouver.
Yeah. But, like, you can get by using stock art, and there's so much out there now. And then if you choose to use AI art, like, this was like the big promise of AI art. We were like, oh my god, we're actually going to be able to fill a book.
We're going to be able to compete with Wizards of the Coast.
Right.
Which it turns out that, apparently...
Maybe not.
Well,
I mean, ultimately not.
I mean...
Wizards of the Coast is not a competible entity.
Maybe, but I just, like, I think it's so crazy how people have been like, nobody touch this, like, don't use it, because you're cheating artists. And it's like, oh, okay, maybe. But, who's really fucking cheating artists is the suppressive power of a monopoly. And if I have to open Pandora's box to bust that up, I don't think that's a bad idea.
Yeah. Now, I think that there's some credence to the idea of using, like, just bare product out of a generative system as art that is not ideal for either side. I think it probably tends to make the designers lazier and ultimately is less good for the consumers, in that you're right, it's not going to create any emotional impact.
No, if you can afford to hire artists, but I mean, how many people are...
Well, and I think that the other side of this that nobody's talking about is that there are a lot of artists out there who have just started using generative AI as a part of their process.
Yeah.
It's a tool. There was never a chance that artists were going to ignore it. It's too much of an advantage. You can generate 100 concepts in a half a day, look through them, find the thing that kind of sparks your imagination of what you want to do, and start getting to work on your own painting. And have you stolen other people's art? Not in any way more meaningful than you were going to anyway.
Yeah.
You were going to go look on the internet, get reference, look for good compositions, look for shadow and light values, look for reference, maybe even put it in the picture, trace over it. I mean, if you've seen a professional artist paint, they're cheating the whole time. There's nothing, you don't just draw the mural, you project the drawing you already did on the wall and then you trace it.
Yeah.
Most artists are not doing constructive drawing of their figures. They're just grabbing the post thing and tracing it on because it's faster. If I already know how to do it and I can just reliably put that, get through that step, I would be a fool not to.
I was reading a really interesting thing a while ago about the original Wonder Woman comics, where they were saying that one of the reasons the art was so punchy in the William Moulton Marston days, he lived with his model, which is not something that, if you're, Steve Ditko drawing lean, muscly teenage boys in the 60s, he was not living with a bunch of lean, muscly teenage boys, thank God. But I think there's something to be said for, anything that makes your art better. If you're not taking advantage of it, then what are you doing? You take all the advantages you can get.
Yeah. Well, and I think on that note...
Sure. Let's just do a quick recap of all the controversial shit we said. I think I've defended the publication of sexual violence. I've argued about justice reform in the United States. We talked a little bit about Christianity, a famously non-controversial subject.
Famously.
What else have we talked about today? AI art. Nobody is embroiled in controversy about that. Anything else we want to...
I mean, we kind of advocate for drug use in Moon Elves Masquerade.
What is the Hunter S. Thompson? I would never advocate drugs and insanity, but they've always worked for me. If we've offended you, I think by law you must leave a comment telling us we're bad, evil people.
Give us more hate mail,
please. Or smoke a joint and chill out. And then write us.
Send us hate mail. Don't
smoke joints.
Don't smoke weed.
That's legal here.
I mean, I don't care.
No,
illegal. Or cigarettes.
Break laws.
Smoke a cigarette?
Break laws, respect cops. That's my take.
Jeez, this guy. All right, well, be like Austin and stay weird.
Stay weird, friends.